Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
A top Palestinian official confirmed that Israel agreed to release about 900 Palestinian detainees, but he did not announce a date for their release or the identity of the prisoners. Meanwhile, Israel is reviewing its absentee property law. This law was drafted 54 years ago, and if implemented, Israel will strip thousands of Palestinians from their land and reserve the right to seize more property, especially the property of Palestinians who are not living in Jerusalem and are designated absentee. A number of Palestinian agencies say that implementing such a law in East Jerusalem would mean that Israel would seize half of the Palestinians' property. Seizing land from East Jerusalem is once again a problem. Israel intends to confiscate thousands of dunams of Palestinian land by implementing the 1954 absentee property law. Thousands of Palestinians lost their property due to this law. They were forced to leave their land after Israel occupied it in 1948. The eastern side of Jerusalem was occupied in 1967. However, the law was not implemented in the entire area.
The areas which used to be the border of the city of Jerusalem were expanded after 1967 to 72 square kilometers. 35% was confiscated for the general interest of the public, 40% was confiscated as green land, and the Palestinians are left with only 14% if we don't count the streets and the undivided areas. Now half of this 14% is under the threat of being seized.
The law will be enforced on Jerusalem landowners who don't have Israeli documents and who don't live in the city. The Palestinians, however, see this as an enforcement of a new reality that will define the final peace agreement and draw new borders, whereas Israel will seize a great amount of Palestinian land meant for the Palestinian state. In Bethlehem, land is also being seized and added to West Jerusalem. Israel is building a separating wall in the area that will take up thousands of dunams.
الأراضي هي أراضي مستخدمة من قبلنا، أراضي مزروعة بالزيتون، أراضي سنويا نستخدمها.
We grow olive trees on this land, and we harvest them every day. But now, it is really hard to get to it, despite the fact that it's only walking distance away from our house.
Due to this law, the Palestinians will lose a great deal of land. They are searching for any legal glitches in order to save their property.
There is a possibility that we will succeed in the battle over ownership of this land. The Israeli law, which was originally established in order to confiscate Palestinian land in 1948, has been violated in essence and in spirit in this particular situation.
In any case, the only way to resolve this matter is through the Israeli courts. The challenge, however, is that these courts play both the roles of judge and executioner. Shireen Yunus, Abu Dhabi TV, Beit Jala. The Iraqi elections will legitimize the political power which the Shiites have been occupying in this country. They represent more than half of the population. They are bonded together and aim to ensure their political clout after years of oppression and neglect by the former regime. The Shiite Ayatollah and Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani in particular encourage the Shiites to participate in the elections. The only Shiite movement that is boycotting the elections is the one led by Muqtada al-Sadr, who announced his refusal to holding elections while the occupation forces are still present.
Enthusiasm among the Shiites for elections is very high, at least it looks that way. The Shiites who boycotted the elections early in the last century, obeying a religious decree, are now going to the election booths, obeying another decree. Between religion and politics, there is a large gray area. At the end of the day, the decision to participate in the elections is a political position, although it was made by a religious entity. Thus, the election in the eyes of the Shiites are the introduction of the new era with a different political reality and a tool to undo the injustice and marginalization. The Shiites, who represent the majority of the Iraqi population, are more than 60%, which explains why they are very confident about the results of this election. This reality was confirmed more than once, first to deal with the different makeup of the Iraqi population. Each ethnic and religious group was given a share in political power, which was viewed as a kind of democracy. On this basis, the interim Iraqi Governing Council and the Iraqi interim government were established. In both cases, the Shiites were at an advantage. Some went to the extent of saying that the U.S. is appeasing the Shiites at the expense of other groups. The insistence of the Shiite leaders that the elections be held on time is actually a burning desire to regain power, and persistent efforts to gain popularity among the Shiites after they were overwhelmed by the large influence and popularity that Muqtada al-Sadr has. This most likely is the reason behind the change in the political speech of many of these leaders, who dropped the talk of nonviolent resistance to the occupation and replaced it with ethnic-based speeches. The most influential role is that of the Grand Ayatollah Sistani. After many years of silence during the former regime, the man decided to break his silence, making him a major player in a political game, which he plays with the aim of achieving the interests of the Shiites. The interests of the Shiites can only be served by ensuring that they are well represented in the upcoming interim National Assembly, so their voices are heard. That is exactly what al-Sistani is doing. He issued a religious decree making voting a religious duty, eliminating any possibility of confusion. He pulled many political parties towards him, especially the Iraqi National United Coalition and other less powerful parties that were hoping to gain his blessing. Al-Sadr is the only Shiite leader who decided to swim against the current. His position toward the American occupation or the election are closer to the Sunni position. However, his outgoing position embarrassed some Shiite religious authorities, which in some cases made some of them almost want to disown him. It is a predetermined matter that the Shiites will win the election, but many are worried that the new Shiite government will be influenced towards Iran. Even al-Sistani's assurances did not help in removing these worries. This struggle is in essence a struggle over power. The elections were intended as the first lesson of democracy, but it may be transformed into a factor of conflict.
In Iraq, cities and provinces are beginning to noticeably pay attention to the upcoming elections, especially under security threats on one side and the practices of the occupation forces on the other. Meanwhile, Iraqis are focused on returning security and lost services to their country. Amidst the chaos caused by the occupation and the resistance to it, the Iraqi general elections are approaching and close attention and preparations are being made from one Iraqi city to the next. This is largely linked to the degree of increased or decreased what the occupation forces call security operations. Najaf in the south immediately began election campaigns and preparations and is moving forward well. The candidates in the elections are seen as the only door for the Iraqi people to leave the current situation.
The elections are the only door for the Iraqi people to end the tough situation Iraqis are currently living in.
The main obstacle on the minds of those who are responsible for conducting the elections in the 235 election polls in the province is guaranteeing security during the elections.
There are two things that concern us in this election. The first is calming the security atmosphere and meeting with security officials in the province.
While explosions continue to recklessly target a number of political party offices of those participating in the elections and a number of election representatives in various cities of the country, a number of Baghdad residents have begun to disavow the elections because they are focused on returning security to Iraq. Some people say that these elections carry an American stamp.
What are these elections? Can those who are elected provide food, gas, or peace of mind to the people? Most importantly, we need security, even if we do vote. If we vote, will it bring us security? These elections are American elections, first and last. The proof is that many segments of the Iraqi population requested to postpone the elections, but this request was denied.
Some parties in the beginning expressed their desire to postpone the elections for security reasons, but at the same time, they did not stop taking additional preparations for participating in the upcoming elections. Contrary to widespread rumors that the decision to boycott the elections by some groups or parties is not related to sectarian, ethnic, or religious differences,
There are people who are boycotting the elections because they have specific fears. They have some conditions which were not fulfilled. However, it doesn't relate to whether they are Sunni or Shiite.
While it is difficult to predict the level of turnout of Iraqi voters and how many of them will be able to go to the voting polls amidst the ongoing security threats, attention is focused on the implications of these elections and on determining the effective date when the Iraqis will get rid of the occupation, as one can see in the content of these election posters.
The Lebanese embassy in Baghdad urged all political and religious factions in Iraq to help release 6 Lebanese held hostage. On the ground, insurgents set off a bomb in front of an Iraqi military convoy south of Baghdad, killing 5 people and wounding 15 others in the latest attack ahead of Sunday's election. And the bomb exploded a short while ago in Samarra, killing 1 Iraqi soldier and wounding 4. Bomb attacks rocked the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk, targeting an American military convoy and 3 polling stations, while a police officer was killed in the city of Tikrit. The attacks came one day after 7 Iraqis were killed in 2 suicide car bomb attacks in front of a police station in the city. 1 polling station was bombed north of Kirkuk, and 2 in the east of the city were also attacked. 2 civilians were wounded. Further south, a bomb exploded near a police car, killing 1 policeman and wounding another. In Baghdad, 8 Australian soldiers were wounded in a bomb attack, and the barracks housing Australia's military contingent came under sniper fire. 31 U.S. troops earlier died in a helicopter crash, and 6 more were killed in the insurgent attacks on the deadliest day for American forces since they invaded Iraq 22 months ago. Insurgents waging a campaign to wreck Sunday's elections also killed 25 Iraqis in a string of suicide bombings and raids, some of them aimed at parties contesting the polls. U.S. President George W. Bush urged the Iraqis to defy the terrorists and vote in large numbers. Several militant groups, including that led by al-Qaeda leader in Iraq, Abu al-Mus'ab al-Zarqawi, have declared war on the election. Bush acknowledged the loss of life was very discouraging to the American people, but appealed for understanding of U.S. goals. In the northern city of Mosul, a video filmed by insurgents showed 3 Iraqi men who had apparently been taken hostage and who said they worked for Iraq's Electoral Commission. Zarqawi, a Jordanian militant, says the election is a plot by Washington and Iraq's Shiites against Sunnis who fear being marginalized. U.S. President George W. Bush warned against Iranian and Syrian intervention in Iraq and said the Palestinian state could be created in less than 4 years. But Bush, who had set a 4-year goal of achieving statehood, said he was wary of setting firm timetables. In an interview with Dubai-based Al Arabiya television, Bush appeared to tone down U.S. warnings to Iran about its nuclear program, saying the row could be solved diplomatically. Vice President Dick Cheney had said Iran was at the top of the administration's list of world trouble spots and expressed concern that Israel might well decide to act first to eliminate any nuclear threat. Iran maintains its program is peaceful. Bush also credited Mahmoud Abbas's, quote, strong leadership in the Palestinian territories with reviving the so-called roadmap peace plan. He vowed to hold the Israelis to their word to ease restrictions on Palestinian movement.
Iraqis are living in the lands of the two rivers, Tigris and Euphrates, but they are suffering a shortage of drinking water. The rivers have been polluted, and electricity and gas are regularly cut off. The Iraqis have demanded their temporary government to secure life's basic necessities and protect the Tigris and Euphrates from contamination, which was exacerbated by the lack of security. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers did not save the Iraqis from a water crisis, in addition to the regular blackouts which the Iraqis have been accustomed to these days. The Iraqi National Electrical Plant only operate about half the time it should, not to mention the gas shortages in the country of oil, as well as the daily missile attacks and explosions. There is no answer to this crisis, which continues to anger and aggravate everyone.
No water in Iraq? Is this the only thing they cut off? No, they cut oil, gas, and electricity. They cut off everything. They left nothing for the people.
Some have dug wells in the backyard of their homes, after concluding that the occupation forces are behind the water crisis. In their eyes, the occupation did not bring them anything but troubles.
We have a well near our home. All the neighbors now get water from it. Every day from 6 in the morning until noon, people are waiting to get water. We are only 3 to 4 kilometers away from the river, and we can't get water from it because it has been contaminated. No one can drink or swim in it. We are pleading with the Iraqi government. They say they went to war with Iraq because it had weapons of mass destruction. We removed Saddam Hussein, and we are very appreciative to get rid of a tyrant. But let me tell you one thing. What good is it if we do not have water?
No water, no electricity. In the Eid holiday, we have no oil or gas, and we have children. We have nothing. Nobody can accept living in this condition. The most important thing is water. We can live without fuel or gas, but we can't live without water. It's Eid holiday. We need to wash our clothes and take a bath. We have children.
Others use the polluted water in rivers because all their water reserves run out. Many families can no longer cook their meals or wash up because they're afraid of getting sick from the polluted water, which according to police reports, about 300 people had to be hospitalized for stomach problems.
The Palestinian president arrived in Amman after talks in the West Bank city of Ramallah with senior U.S. State Department envoy William Burns. The envoy expressed optimism that Israel and the Palestinian Authority would return to talks to move the roadmap peace plan forward. Burns' visit ahead of a visit by newly confirmed Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice to the region in 3 weeks. He met with Israeli and Palestinian officials to urge them to resume peace talks. Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon and Abbas are expected to be meeting next month for talks likely to focus on coordinating Israel's planned pullout from the Gaza Strip in the summer and ways of reviving the U.S.-backed roadmap. Sharon said he was very satisfied with measures Abbas had taken to reduce violence. He said he planned to move with the new Palestinian leader towards peace. After talks with Palestinian Prime Minister Ahmed Qurayah, Burns said President George W. Bush was satisfied with steps taken by the Palestinian leadership to restore law and order and establish the basis for a ceasefire. Senior Palestinian advisor Nabil Aburdani said Washington was encouraged by the steps Abbas had taken on security, but expects reciprocal steps from the Israeli side.
It's our view that progress on all these fronts can create a solid foundation for a successful, coordinated implementation of Israel's Gaza withdrawal initiative, not as an end in itself, but as a step toward the full implementation of the roadmap and ultimately toward a negotiated end of occupation and toward the two-state solution that is so deeply in the interests of Palestinians as well as Israelis.
They were encouraged by the steps which were taken by the authority. We encouraged them to interfere and to force the Israelis to stop their aggression so that the truce would succeed and so that we can succeed in our procedures concerning what's going on the ground.
Steps to cement a ceasefire accelerated on the ground as Palestinian security men set to deploy in South Gaza to stamp out lingering isolated violence. But the deployment of 3,000 Palestinian policemen was delayed until tomorrow for technical reasons. But in the latest incident in Gaza, a Palestinian was killed by Israeli troops in a road used by Jewish settlers. Also in the Gaza Strip, Palestinians were voting in 10 localities in the first municipal elections organized in the occupied territory. Hamas and Islamic Jihad, which boycotted the presidential elections, are contesting strongly in the municipal polls. More than 90,000 voters are entitled to cast ballots in 167 voting centers to choose members of municipal councils. Voters were choosing 188 council members from 440 candidates. Many of them, independents, are running in the polls. The towns voting include Beit Hanun and Deir al-Balah, but not Gaza City itself. Let's move now to Iraq, where there have been no let-up in violence as gunmen killed at least 20 Iraqis as they stepped up attacks ahead of Sunday's elections. The bloodiest attack occurred in the northwestern town of Sinjar near the Syrian border when a truck bomb exploded near the offices of a major Kurdish party. At least 15 people were killed and 30 injured. Insurgents attacked 2 polling stations and a U.S. convoy in the Kurdish town of Kirkuk. A roadside bomb exploded outside a school being used as a polling station, causing damage to the building and nearby cars. In a separate incident, insurgents fired mortars at another school being used as a polling station, causing damage. An eyewitness said 7 polling stations were attacked overnight. A U.S. Humvee was damaged when a roadside bomb was detonated as a convoy drove past. No injuries were reported. A suicide car bomb aimed at Iraqi security forces in the town of Baquba killed at least 1 policeman and wounded 6 other people. And a car bomb exploded near an Iraqi army patrol in Samarra, killing an Iraqi soldier and 2 civilians. A suspected suicide car bomb exploded outside a U.S. military base in the western city of Ramadi. Also, a U.S. soldier was killed in Dayali, north of Baghdad, and 8 Australian soldiers were wounded in a car bomb attack in the capital. Many Iraqis are skeptical that the elections will be bringing the freedom and democracy that they seek. Only 3 days to go before Iraqis elect a parliament that will help write a new constitution to guide their country. And pessimism runs high. The infrastructure of the country is in shambles. Unemployment and poverty is rampant, while electricity, water, and fuel is still scarce in a country rich in oil. On Saturday, Iraq will be closing all its land borders and impose a curfew banning all non-official vehicles from the roads to strengthen security efforts against any possible insurgent attacks on Election Day. Insurgents have declared war on the elections, threatening to attack anyone who votes. Even Iraqi Shiites, who are expected to win most of the parliamentary seats, don't expect much change. Iraqis in Sadr City, a Shiite community, strongly support Sadr and just as strongly dislike American presence in their country. They have called on politicians to agree to a timetable for foreign troops to leave Iraq and are disappointed that this has not been done.
To a different topic entirely, and the 60th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz concentration camp will take place in the coming week. In recognition of this historical day, a series of events are taking place to commemorate the 6 million Jews who perished at the hands of the Nazis. Leah Stern reports.
In Paris, a long-awaited memorial for the victims of the Holocaust is nearing completion. The monument features a series of pale stone walls engraved with the names of 76,000 people deported from France to the Nazi death camps. 10 experts spent 2.5 years gathering the names from Gestapo documents and from French families. Victims are listed with their date of birth and the year they were deported. 11,000 of the total deportees were children. Some are simply identified as a child because historians were unable to identify their names. The memorial also contains a room dedicated to photographs of children and families deported to the camps, including a multimedia and research center. The project has been in the works for the past 20 years and is set to open to the public on January 27th.
Well, we're trying, in fact, to work very much on people as individuals. We're both trying to show what happened individually to people during this time, but we're trying to work on people as individuals. We want them to come out of this show thinking about, I would say, what happened, etc., but also thinking a little bit about themselves, and to have to think about, would I have been a victim during this time, or even today, can I still be a victim? Can I be, would I have been indifferent? Would I have been a resistant? Or even, would I have been a perpetrator?
Henry Borland, the 77-year-old Auschwitz survivor, recounted the horrific story of his experiences to hundreds of high school seniors. Borland explained that you can always find good amongst evil, and that it is unfair to blame the entire German race for the atrocities of the Holocaust. The 60th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz concentration camp will take place this Thursday with President Moshe Katsav in attendance. This is Leah Stern reporting.
Based on a request by the United States with the support of Russia, the European Union, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, the UN General Assembly held an exclusive session to commemorate the liberation of the Nazi death camps, among them Auschwitz. On the 60th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi death camps, among the most well-known is Auschwitz, the UN General Assembly, which has 191 countries, held an exclusive session on Monday, January 24th of 2005. On the occasion, the UN Secretary General Kofi Annan said that evil continues to be a threat to the world.
It's essential for all of us to remember.
It is essential for all of us to remember and learn from what happened 60 years ago. The evil that took the lives of 60 million Jews and others in these camps still threatens all of us today. It is not something that we can resign to the distant past and forget about.
This occasion creates a major change in the UN General Assembly, which usually sets aside a number of days out of the year to submit resolutions about protecting the rights of Palestinians and the Israeli occupation of Palestinian lands. Meanwhile, the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations expressed his hope that these talks would move the Israelis and shore up new hope for peace in the Middle East.
This was not an Israeli initiative.
Although this was not an Israeli initiative, it was a universal initiative, but it has a very special meaning to Israel and to the Jewish people, since 138 countries supported it, including many countries which you would have thought would not support such an initiative.
The Soviet Army liberated the Auschwitz camp in Poland at the end of January in the year 1945. It is one of the camps where more than 6 million Jews and other European prisoners were held or killed.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.